city of Philly, where the birds take flight. Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Tone and Markus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Broad Street lights. Dashing like a running back, hitting every play. Blind guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by. Bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Markus always standing by. Bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Bald Eagles podcast is back. We are in the building.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ski.
What's
You
going
already
on,
know the
Tony?
vibes, y'all.
How you
I know the
be?
vibes.
Uh-oh.
You know? Listen, man. I'm glad to be always. Looking forward to talking football with you. Oh,
Hold on
you
for
got
a
me?
second. Something going on. You keep going in and out. I don't know if this is a you problem or a me problem.
On my side, everything hooked up.
Yeah.
So,
Hold on.
but,
Let me try one thing. Hold on for a second.
no problem, big dog. No problem at all.
Go
Nonetheless,
dark. I
I appreciate y'all for locking in on the content as always. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to both channels. That is Pro Fan Talk, and also make sure you guys are subscribed to Chalk It Up Sports. We really do appreciate you guys. You feel me? Let's see here. All right. Okay, yeah. So they're saying it's not just you. This says also me. They said it's them as well. So maybe
Okay.
Maybe it is on my end. Maybe it is on my end. All right. Nonetheless, they got me now. Talk to me.
Yeah, I got you. I had you before. It would just every now and then it would just go away. Didn't know what the cause of it was.
Yeah. All right, bet. Check. Mic check. All right. So yeah, man. I mean, look, I'm trying to think where should we begin because we can talk. Actually, you know what? This is what we got to do. We need to do a recap of the recent moves the Eagles have made. That's what we got to do.
Right.
So, first and foremost, what's your feeling? What's your overall thoughts about what the Eagles have done thus far in free agency?
Thus far, I'm good. Especially when I saw Rick Woolen. Everything to me, everything is just like positioning. Everything is I think Rick Woolen is the big splash. Howie seems to make a splash move every offseason, and this was it. And this is kind of tame by comparison, but I like it because it makes the most sense. And we got a really, really good player. Hopefully, I have heard the chatter about the attitude and the unsportsmanlike and taunting and all of that type of stuff. Hopefully, Vic Fangio can get that in check. But a good player is a good player. Hopefully, the environment will change and curb some of that just a little bit. I don't want to take his edge away because there's a benefit to that. But just like we said about Jalen Carter, you got to be smart and you got to pick and choose your battles. So we'll figure that out when it comes down to. Hopefully, it won't be anything stupid. But other than that, man, I know Howie is putting himself in position to strike and make moves and make deals the closer we get to draft. And not for nothing, we are literally a month away from the draft, and it's coming quick. So he's doing what he's supposed to do. As far as I had a list of all of our moves that I'm looking for. But Howie don't make no mistakes when it comes like this. He might miss. There's a difference between missing on a guy and making a mistake. We haven't really made any mistakes. Howie hasn't made any mistakes in a long time. So, again, he's got my benefit of the doubt. I'm always hands off. I trust Howie completely when it comes to this because whether you look back the last 4 or 5 seasons, whatever moves that you think he missed on, and to be fair, he has, but compared to all the other teams, the other 31 teams in this league, Howie's head and shoulders better than anybody else. This is his time of the year. So I'm going to let him do his thing. We a month out, so things are going to be getting hot. Things are going to be hot afterwards, because once the draft is over, you got about a week to, I wish we would have got, how come he didn't draft, and, you know, somebody fell to us, and all of that. Those conversations are going to come. Then you're going to go into the maelstrom of what's going to happen with A.J. Brown before or after June 1st. So we got a lot that's going to happen in a short period of time, and it's going to be very eventful for us here in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Real quick, let me restart my system real quick, and I'm going to come back, all right?
Okay. Fred is back. Guess who's back? Uh-oh, hold on. Let me take this off. Tone went out. I wish I could figure out a way to do that automatically. There we go. I'll bring him back. What's good, AJ? How y'all feeling in the chat? How y'all feeling in the chat? I'm good. You guys have heard me say this before. This is Howie's season. I trust Howie implicitly and completely. Hands off, do what you do. Whatever, I'm to the point where whatever it's going to be with AJ Brown is what it's going to be with AJ Brown. Me personally, I would like AJ to stay right here in Philadelphia. We're going to get into this, but I put a tweet out earlier today, and it was talking about AJ Brown and Jalen Waddle and the stats they put up over the last 4 years. And under the umbrella of Jalen Hurts is not a good passing quarterback. He's okay. But is Jalen Hurts what you would consider a good passing quarterback, all things being considered? Most people would say he's average, or most people would just tell you no. But A.J. Brown, over the last 4 years, over 5,000 yards receptions, 32 touchdowns, and he's only 28. Over 5,000 yards in 4 seasons. Somebody's got to throw him the ball. Somebody's got to throw him the ball. So people get stuck on that all the time, and they want to, poo-poo what Jalen Hurts is doing. It seems like we get into this Jalen Hurts conversation every freaking year. And at the end of the day, you're not going to please everybody. So,
it moves the needle.
Trying.
Let's call it what it is. It moves the needle.
He moves the needle.
This man is a Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. There's no Super Bowl champion at the quarterback position that gets talked about the way he gets talked about.
Nobody.
Like, seriously. It took them until the Denver Broncos run for them to really start going after Russell Wilson. You know what I'm saying? Like, Jalen Hurts is 2 years removed from winning the Super Bowl. Even when he won it, they were still.
It was something.
The following season, they just couldn't help themselves. You feel what I'm saying? So it's just one of those things where you got to know what it is. You got to accept it for what it is. You got to know that it's not in good faith. It's not. It's not in good faith. So I can't take it serious.
No. Let it go. But they will keep pushing the issue because, like you said, it gets clicks. It's popular. It's the elephant in the room, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So it is what it is.
Yeah, like he just won you a Super Bowl. He's a Pro Bowler. He's an All-Pro. He's proven that he can get it done with the weapons. He's proven that he can maximize opportunity. He's proven that he can get the ball to superstar guys, and they can get their numbers and have career years. Right? It's like at the end of the day, their opinion, quite frankly, is irrelevant. But it's going to be interesting because the Eagles continue to add, right? They added Hollywood Brown, and now they've added a young wide receiver, 25-year-old wide receiver, Elijah Moore, in free agency. They just signed him a handful of minutes ago. I want to say maybe about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes ago. And Elijah Moore was a guy that I thought was super talented coming out of Ole Miss. You know, when I saw his route running ability, I felt like he was a guy. I felt like he was a guy that was quick, that was shifty, knew how to run the route tree. He's a guy that's not the biggest dude, 5'10", 178. And when you think about that profile, and then you compare it to the Hollywood Brown profile, 5'9", 180, they're telling you what they're looking for in that slot position. They're telling you that they're looking for guys that are quick. Quick. And Elijah Moore and Marquise Brown are significantly quicker than Jahan Dotson. That's not an opinion. If you've seen Elijah Moore run routes, there's a twitchiness to him. Not saying Jahan Dotson can't run routes. I think Jahan Dotson can run routes, but Jahan Dotson is probably the more well-rounded receiver out of those two guys.
Right.
But I think there's a twitchiness that they felt they lacked in that slot position.
I never thought about it like that, but that makes sense. For the same reason, and I just heard this today, for the same reason we were talking about Sidney Brown was not one of Vic Fangio's guys. Sidney Brown was here before Vic Fangio was. So a lot of people think that that's one of the reasons why Sidney Brown was out of here. He wasn't somebody Vic Fangio would have chosen. He would have went in a different direction. And that's fair. But to your point, Sean Mannion might be looking for a certain type of person, a certain type of athlete receiver at that position. Maybe they do want to run some more quick routes and they're looking for a special type of receiver. Or, you know, some people like their guys. Some people like big offensive linemen. Some people like smaller offensive linemen with quick feet. It all depends on what you want. And this is, I guess, for me, I haven't really talked about this much, but what does Sean Mannion want in his offense? What is he looking for? That's a big part of this. And I didn't, until you mentioned that, I was like, that makes sense. He might be trying to go in a certain direction because it requires different things to make his offense run more effectively. So we could be dealing with that too.
Yeah. And when you think about the offense he came from, you know, he spent 2 years in Green Bay. So he had a chance to analyze and watch how Matt LaFleur utilized those weapons. And regardless, you have to pay attention to what the guy was. You have to pay attention to what a guy had access to. You have to pay attention to where a guy came from.
Yeah.
He comes from the Green Bay offense, right? He did study under guys like, you know, Sean McVay. I believe he also was coached by. He's been connected to some pretty sharp people in his time in the league as a player and being under Matt LaFleur as a coach. I mean, he almost had an opportunity with the Bears. Things fell through. He ended up with Green Bay. Nonetheless, when you think about what Green Bay got out of those receivers, the one thing about those Green Bay receivers that stood out to me the most, even though none of them are probably top 10 guys on their own, the Green Bay unit probably was a top 10 unit. But they don't have an individual top 10 guy. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So like when you think about even the year when the Eagles played them twice, right? The opener and in the NFC wildcard round. I would argue Green Bay has had a top 10 receiver unit, you know, since Jordan Love has taken over. You know, Romeo Doubs, Dontavion Wicks, Jaden Reed, right? Christian Watkins when healthy. Together as a collective, that unit was one of the most effective, one of the most productive. None of them had 1,000 yards, though. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
yeah.
What the point I'm trying to get to is with Sean Mannion, he saw that, and there was one trait about that whole unit that superseded everything else. And it wasn't just the speed. There was a twitchiness to guys like Jaden Reed. There was a twitchiness to a guy like Dontavion Wicks. Jaden Reed he put some numbers on the Eagles.
Yes.
What was that? In 2024. He put some numbers on the Eagles in week 1. He did. So I think when you see that and you see what it's able to do, especially when you know how to call the plays, I think that's something that I think that's something he wants to add. I think he wants more twitchiness, more I don't know if the word is gadgetness. It's not really a word, but I think he just wants a little bit more pop, that short area speed out of that slot position.
Yeah, and I like that thought process because that makes a lot of sense. And I'm looking at it from the standpoint of get the ball in the hands of your playmakers and let them make plays. Period. Don't make it complicated. Didn't we say that a lot the last 2 seasons?
Yeah.
The offense does not need to make it complicated. Just get the ball in the hands of the guys that'll make plays. That's why we were so frustrated when A.J. Brown wasn't getting the ball or we wasn't throwing the quick slants. And because we're looking back at the things that we did before all of this mess started, even before the Super Bowl. And we were like, man, we used to run that in our sleep. How come we not running it no more? And then you get different coaches in with different philosophies and they like certain things. And, you know, I'm more interested on what he's not going to do. Because we talked about, and I've heard Jalen Hurts mention this, about the benefit, the pluses and minuses of doing a lot of motion. Jalen doesn't like a lot of motion because you want your defense or you want the offense to be set so you can have more time to figure out what the defense is going to do. When you're moving around, you don't know what they're going to do. Now, there's a benefit to catching the defense off guard. There's also the risk of making a mistake because it looks like one thing when folks are in motion. And then maybe the defense can recover or put guys, you know, if the offense is in motion, that means the defense is in motion too. Is it man coverage? Are they dropping off? Are they going to tamper back with the middle linebacker and he's going to drop back into coverage? Different things like that.
Right.
You know, when you bring in a guy in motion, also, and this is something that most people don't think about. If somebody's coming in motion, whether it's an easy motion, whether it's a jet motion, whether it's a shift, then go back the other way, a lot of times that takes the quarterback's attention to a particular area. So now, does his reads change? Is it left, right, left? Is it right, left, middle? Is it left, left? You know, it could be different things. Are you gonna look for the 10-yard out to A.J. Brown? If that's not there, your number 2 option is I don't know, Saquon in the flat. Then you got the tight end releasing across the middle as the check down. Different things like that. It all depends on what the play says. And if you go in motion, that can change up the read. So that's another thing about it. Why maybe that's why Jalen didn't like so much motion, but it confuses the defense. So there's a lot of X factors that Sean Mannion has to answer as to how this offense is going to run and how effectively is it going to be, because we still bitching about us not throwing the ball across the middle. We got to see what his chess game is like.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. You know, touching back on the Elijah Moore factor, right? You've added Hollywood Brown. Both of these, Hollywood Brown, 2022, 709 yards, 2023, 574, 2024, he got hurt, 2025, 587. Quite literally number 3, high end number 3, low end number 2 production, right? Then Elijah Moore, since he's been in the NFL, his rookie year, 538 yards on 43 catches. His second season, 2022, 446 on 37 catches. 2023, 640 on 59 catches. 2024, 538 on 61 catches. In 2025, he barely got burned with the Buffalo Bills. Not really sure what that was about. Only played in 9 games, started in 2. Quite literally became non-playable, or they didn't play him at all after, I want to say, week 10, week 11, something like that. They didn't. He got no burn post week 12. And he was fairly healthy, and he's been fairly healthy for the past several seasons, right? Minus his rookie year where he missed 66 games. But
right,
2022, 16 games played, 9 starts. 2023, 17 games played, 12 starts. 2024, 17 games played, 13 starts. In 2025, 9 games played, 2 starts. And it wasn't because of injury, as far as I know. I don't see anything on his injury docket. So I am curious to know what went wrong with the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen is a quarterback that typically knows how to get the ball to his guys. Now, high pressure situations, that's a different conversation. But just Josh Allen, Josh Allen as a talent.
I like how you snuck that in there.
Josh Allen knows how to play football. He knows how to play the position. He knows how to get the ball in his guys' hands. So I am curious to know what went wrong in Buffalo. Was it a scheme misfit? Right? Was it what was there a disconnect between him and the OC? Right? Especially when Keon Coleman wasn't really doing what they expected him to do.
That got weird.
That was the weirdest thing, but it's even weirder that it's the Keon Coleman and Elijah Moore thing is just weird. It's just from a usage and production perspective. I am curious because Josh Allen is the best quarterback he's had.
Yes.
And I'm surprised he wasn't able to get opportunities in that offense. Nonetheless, he comes to Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts. You have A.J. Brown for now at the position. You have Devontae Smith. You brought in Hollywood Brown. You brought in Elijah Moore. You have Darius Cooper, a young player that I like, but the hill just got steeper. And you got Johnny Wilson coming back from injury. If I'm correct, that's 6 wide receivers right there. I still haven't said Brenton Covey, Quez Watkins, who I'm not really worried about, but and Danny Gray. So that's 9 receivers right now on his roster. AJ, Smitty, Hollywood Brown, Elijah Moore, Johnny Wilson, Darius Cooper.
So Elijah Moore had what? A little over 2,000 yards
for his career. He has just over 2,200. So 2,274.
What year did? What was his rookie year?
2021.
2021. So
came in as a Jet.
This will be 2026. So let's say
he's only a 5-year pro going into the 6th season. He's only 25 years old.
Okay, so starting from his 2nd year in the league, he's got around 2,000 plus yards receiving in 4 years.
The down year is really the 2025. His years have been very consistent up until last season.
Right. But here's the point that I'm getting to. Because if we're going to assume the worst, and these are some of the guys that quote unquote will replace A.J. Brown, I'm looking at the production. Elijah Moore plus Hollywood Brown do not equal A.J. Brown
whatsoever. I'm glad you went there because the reality is losing A.J. Brown this offseason is very much a possibility.
Yes.
So
and what are you going to replace it with?
So therefore, you have to ask yourself, like you said, how do you replace that production? And look, we've seen offenses do spectacular things in terms of getting a collective group effort, but you can't replace that just by signing a couple guys off the street. You just can't, especially guys who are under 6 feet, 180 pounds, soaking wet. Like that's not just going to replace A.J. Brown production. And I'm not even trying to imply that's what Howie Roseman is thinking.
Right.
But the reality is, if I'm judging the moves unbiasedly, I think Howie Roseman is very much thinking about the prospect of what if A.J. Brown is not here. Now, obviously, he has to pull the trigger on that. So the what if is different coming from him than it is coming from me. But is the situation a little bit more dire than what he's giving off, right? Now, I don't know.
We don't.
We
really
don't know.
Yeah,
I like it that we don't too, because keep your. My mom always said, "What happens in this house, stay in this house." You feel what I'm saying?
Keep family business in the family,
right? And A.J. Brown has yet to jump out the window.
The minute they let it be known what's going to happen with A.J. Brown, his value immediately goes down.
Yes, and so far, and again, Howie Roseman has not officially made him available. He's just said, "Hey, I listen to calls. That's it."
Correct.
Right?
I'm doing my job. That's all he's saying.
Right, and that's what he's saying. Now we know behind closed doors, he's doing more than just listening, because He has a responsibility to do it, and this smoke is growing.
Yes.
And where there's smoke, most people say there's fire. The reality is, it's possible AJ Brown won't be here. So therefore, Howie Roseman has to assess this. He say, okay,
But also, and this is where I want to offer pushback.
okay,
It is very possible that AJ Brown will not be here next year.
yes,
However, comma, it is very possible that he will.
yes, because again, all we have to go off of is what people believe AJ Brown feels.
Correct. And I am trying to consciously not fall into the narrative, because everybody talks about what isn't being saying. What isn't being said leads people to believe that he's gone.
Yeah, he don't help the situation though.
He doesn't, because he could, and I agree, he could put all of this stuff to rest if he came on somebody's show or did something. It's like, listen, man, I ain't going nowhere. This is home. Just like he did, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever.
The last time he spoke, the most recent time we spoke.
So I'm talking about that was 2 years ago, the time he came on the radio. Well,
that was the off season before 2020. That was the 2024 off season
going into the Super Bowl.
That was after the collapse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
and you know, boy, did he make people eat their words. But the reality, go ahead.
Somewhere in my heart, in my heart of hearts, I am truly hoping that AJ is just trolling Philadelphia media, where he's like, I'm not giving y'all jack. I'm gonna talk to everybody else but you, because every time I try to talk to you, y'all spin it and take it and do what y'all do with it. So guess what? I ain't giving y'all jack.
Yeah. And the last
thing
that's
what he's doing, and he's just, putting the burn on WIP in 97.5 and just don't want to talk to him, because he done been on 4 or 5 different podcasts. He can talk to anybody else, but he ain't saying jack to anybody in Philadelphia.
Yeah,
which is his prerogative.
It is his prerogative, and it doesn't. Like
but it's not a good look.
It doesn't help. The trolling doesn't help, right? I mean,
it does not.
Sure, it was an old video, but he did repost a video on his story about him, like they asked him. It was an old video, but he reposted it nonetheless.
Yeah,
and they said, "What was your most fondest football memory?" And
he said watching.
He said watching the Patriots. He said watching Tom Brady and the Patriots in that Seahawks Super Bowl. I think he said. He said I think he said that. He said that was a fine memory. I'm like, you just won a Super Bowl. You won one. Fuck watching one. You won one.
Facts.
And balled out, by the way. Like, you get what I'm saying? So it's like little things like that makes you
just piss you off.
It's like a gnat, really.
You don't want to be mad at him because it's him.
It doesn't affect my day, but it's a gnat. You ever go to a cookout and it's a fly and that's like damn, I'm having a good time, but shit, this one gnat won't leave me and my plate alone. Like it's an annoyance. It's one of those things where I'm like,
it's when you sneak out with your cousin and then he tell everybody what y'all did and get you in trouble. Why couldn't you just keep your mouth shut?
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's confusing.
It's all good, man. And I say this again. I don't want AJ to go anywhere. AJ does things his own way, and I think that is a big part of the problem, and why a lot of the media take the route that they do with him. And I think it's a disservice to him because of his mental issues, because of the way he deals with things. Everybody's different. Everybody does it their own way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got a problem with somebody, or if somebody for whatever reason irks you some kind of way, everything they do is going to get on your nerves.
Yes.
Everything.
And that's the angle that is always interesting, because if that's the case for someone, you always have to question what their criticism is rooted in.
Right. But the problem, taking it a step further, in my opinion, the problem is there are more people that align with the media's perspective on it.
Mm.
Because they want to be mad at somebody or something. What do you mean he was reading a book on the sideline? He must not be serious. Well, did you see what he did? Do you see what his stats are? Through reading a book on the sideline, tweets, and everything else y'all accuse him of doing, he's only caught the ball for 5,000 yards and 30-something touchdowns, and we been to the Super Bowl twice and got a chip, and he caught both touchdowns in both games. What's the problem?
Yeah, I think there is.
If that's what tweeting does, I'll keep doing it. If that's what reading the book on the sideline does, keep doing it. Keep reading.
You know what I think? I think AJ Brown feels like it shouldn't be this difficult to be productive in this talented offense. Let's just get down to what it is, right? And we're going to move off the AJ Brown topic pretty soon because you guys get enough of it already. But this will be my last point on AJ Brown. Then we can really get into, we can probably, revisit some of the moves they made. AJ Brown feels like, and this is me assuming, I want to make that clear. He feels like it shouldn't be this difficult to be as productive as they could be in an offense this talented.
Agreed.
And the reality is he's absolutely right. He's right.
Agreed.
And for 2 seasons in a row, he's felt like, or at least for a stretch last season, he felt like, 2025, he felt like, all year was a struggle. 2024, there was like a pocket where he felt like it was a struggle. And
what was his receptions numbers? What were his receptions in 22, 23, and 25?
Well, 23 was the career year all the way around.
Yeah, but I want to look at 22 because 22 was when we went to the Super Bowl.
So it's interesting, right? 22 and 23 years are very comparable. 2022, 145 targets, 88 catches, 1496, 11 touchdowns. 2023, 158 targets, 106 catches, 1456, 7 touchdowns.
And that was the year they wanted Sirianni fired at the end of that year.
Yeah, the 2023 season. That was the collapse. During the collapse, he had a career year in terms of receptions and targets. That was his first 100-catch season. 2022, he had a career year in yards and tied his career high in touchdowns. 2023, where he missed 4 games, still had he had 67 catches on 97 targets. So his targets went down drastically. He had he had 61 less targets in 2024 versus 2023. But you have to factor in the Saquon Barkley effect.
Yes, you do.
You cannot pretend that is something that is not relevant to what happened in 2024. His numbers didn't just go down because the passing game was unproductive. No, Saquon Barkley was having a year for the ages. And when you got a guy that's feasting like that, you hand him the fucking ball.
That's why I skipped it. That's why I said 22, 23, and 25.
Right.
So I would be curious to know 22 and 23.
What
was his average? What was his average targets per game or his average catches per game? Not necessarily yards, because yards can be all over the place. But I'm looking at targets and, more importantly, catches.
So that's a good question, actually. Let me see if I can pull that here. Let's go to the advanced stats. All right. All right, I'm going to do some math. So, okay, here we go. So what year was it again? What year you won it again?
23 and 25.
All right, so in 2022, he played in 17 games, had 88 catches. All right, so 88 divided by 17, he averaged 5 catches a game, 5.2 catches a game. So he averaged 5 catches a game in 2022, right? 2023, he played in 17 games. He averaged 6 catches a game, 6.2, but 6 catches a game. So 2022, 5 catches a game average. 2023, 6 catches a game on average, right? 2024 is the outlier year, so we're going to skip that, correct?
But you can, what, you know what the number is?
I can give it to you.
What's the number?
67. So 67 catches divided by the 17. Or I'm sorry, he played in 13 games. Divided by 13 games, 5 catches a game.
5. There you go.
So this is where it gets interesting because
yes, that's
because
exactly
AJ Brown technically your opportunities didn't go down. Your health did.
Correct.
Technically. And this is where the sign. I'm sorry. And then 2025.
What's 2025?
2025, 78 catches. So 78 catches divided by 15 games played. 5 catches a game. I love this exercise you just did. I love this exercise you just did because all it did was expose the fact that your opportunities didn't go down.
Nope.
Your health did. Now, obviously, we watched the games and things weren't as smooth as the numbers indicate, right?
Correct.
It's never that simple. It's never that simple. So Chris 30K, relax. Like we watch the games. We're doing the exercise.
Yeah. And you know what it looked like?
Relax. Drink some tea.
It looked like we had a Hellcat engine in a hoopty.
Yes.
That's what it looked like. That is what he was pissed off about. It should have been more efficient. You made the point. You said it perfectly. With the weapons we had on offense, why was the offense looking the way it was looking?
It looked very different. It looked challenging.
They were bipolar. They couldn't stay consistent to save their life.
Yeah, they had
a big portion of that was the offensive line. And I think the next biggest portion, I think, was Kevin Patullo's scheme. And I got to keep it 100. The other part of that, not as big, but you got to put some on his shoulders. Jalen Hurts.
Yes. Yeah. He was far from as effective. I actually think he was way better in 2024 than he was in 2025. Personally,
agreed.
I think he was way better.
But I'm trying to figure out, because everybody wants to throw Jalen out with the bathwater, and I'm like, no, you can't, because he won a Super Bowl and he was the best player in the Super Bowl in both the Super Bowls he appeared in. But you can't say that. I don't give a damn if he doesn't like to throw across the middle or whatever his average, whatever stat they want to use. Because all of the guys with the golden arms and the gold medals for stats ain't got the ring. So that argument is moot, because that's what you play for. So I guess my thing is you're trying to figure out, and again, AJ Brown has never said anything incorrect. The problem was the passing game. It started with the passing game because we couldn't block. We couldn't run block. So the defense didn't respect the run. So that made it harder to throw the ball. That's number one. Number two, I don't think Kevin Patullo was particularly that good at calling the offense. Because we see, just as a hypothetical, do you think Kellen Moore would have looked as good as he did if Saquon didn't have the year he had?
No, of course not.
Saquon was a direct result of Jeff Stoutland. Jeff Stoutland had that offensive line humming.
And I want to give credit to assistant coach and running back coach Jamal Singleton.
Yes.
I was
everybody that was responsible for the run game in 2024, everybody get an Emmy. Everybody get a trophy.
Yeah. I was paying close attention to Jamal Singleton in the 2024-2025 season, and every chance there was a mic'd up, every time he spoke, I really was keyed in on what specifically he was saying.
Yes,
Jamal Singleton had the pulse of Saquon Barkley in this. Like how when in Mortal Kombat, when you take their heart out and they got the heart pumping in their hand.
Yeah.
Quite literally. You ever seen Drumline?
See what?
Drumline. When Nick Cannon. You ever seen Drumline?
Absolutely.
Remember the scene where they hitting the drums and the ball walks up to him and he like, he feeling his pulse, and he's feeling the drum, he's feeling the beat. Jamal Singleton had the pulse of that running back room. He had the pulse of Saquon Barkley. Jeff Stoutland had the pulse of that offensive line. They were quite literally, their hearts were beating in sync that entire season.
They were in the zone for most of the year.
And
Saquon was seeing things that normal people don't see.
yeah,
The offensive line was running over folks because they knew whatever happened, Saquon was going to find them. He was going to find the hole. He was going to find the cutback. He was in the zone for most of the year.
It was generational. You know, that's something that's a year that you can't quite forget.
Against LA, against the Rams.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
Yeah, it was. The circumstances, the environment, the elements. I mean,
so here's the hypothetical.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how we would perceive Kellen Moore if they would have blocked like they did with Kevin Patullo?
Well, we know one
That's
thing for
the
sure.
biggest difference. Because don't forget, we was complaining about Kellen Moore at the first half of the year. If we got to see one more damn triple screen to the left, come on now, like stuff like we were still complaining about shit when Kellen Moore was there, but the running game masked all of those warts, all of them. Patullo just didn't have that luxury for whatever reason. Whatever reason was behind our offensive line playing like trash this past season. Whatever reason that was, injuries, whatever. If it was injuries with Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, if those two players made that big of a difference, it is what it is. But they blocked like trash last year.
They were awful.
Kellen Moore, it was a complete 180. They were dominating the line of scrimmage. When they went in 2024, we were like, yo, Jason Kelsey, we need to hire him as a scout because he found Cam Jurgens. He handpicked him, and he knew what he was talking about. Then you come this year, and you're looking at Cam Jurgens like, bruh, what the hell happened to you? So whatever that reason is, I say it was injuries. Other people might have other opinions. But whatever that reason was, in 2024, Saquon Barkley was like face cream. He was healing all of them zits and warts and couldn't nobody see anything because Saquon was just so good. And it made the linebackers. That's what I meant about the defense not respecting the run game. The Chiefs in the Super Bowl, they played their hand. You either got to stop Saquon or you got to stop Jalen Hurts. They chose Saquon because they bought into the narrative. Jalen Hurts ain't a great passer. He's okay.
But here's the thing, though. Let me ask you a question. What would you have done? I think I would have done the same.
Oh, I absolutely.
I don't think there was another game plan. You get what I'm saying? I don't think
that was
any
the lesser of two evils.
Exactly. I don't think any defensive coordinator makes any other choice. They just didn't account for the fact that Jalen Hurts could do it again.
Correct.
And they also didn't think that that Chiefs offense would get stifled the way they did by the Eagles defense.
Defense.
There was three things they were hoping for. Only one came to fruition. They were hoping to stop Saquon. They did that. They were hoping that defense would crack under pressure. It didn't happen. They was hoping Jalen Hurts would crack under the pressure. It didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
So they played the odds and they lost. And sometimes that's the way it happens, right? So now we fast forward here. We get to this Eagles offensive line like we've been talking about. I think if I had to really place some blame, and we talk about this all the time, but I'm using this as a leverage point to get to another angle here. I got to put the blame on the offensive line for about 40% of what happened last year, 40-50%. Kevin Patullo gets his fair share of the 40, and then, or maybe, listen, you divvy it up how you want to divvy it up, but I feel like the bulk of it is offensive line and Kevin Patullo, right? Jalen Hurts belongs in that category. I'll probably give Jalen Hurts about maybe 20% or something like that, 20-30%, who knows?
That's fair.
So now we get to this year, this offseason, this draft class. And I think this is a situation where Howie Roseman, don't be afraid. And I don't want to use the word afraid because that's not how Howie Roseman thinks, but let me put it this way. Don't be surprised if Howie Roseman goes offensive line in that first round at pick 23.
I'm expecting him to do that.
Knowing exactly what we know about Lane Johnson right now and what we just found out about Landon Nickerson.
That's the path I expect him to go.
There's no way on God's green earth Howie Roseman doesn't go offensive line in that first round.
Yeah, Vincent, we already talked about Stoutland. You may not have been with us before, but we've talked about Stoutland. Stoutland gets a lot of the blame too because he's the run game coordinator, so it does fall in his lap. Absolutely, we are not forgetting that.
Yeah. So there's a guy that a lot of mock drafts have the Eagles drafting in that first round at pick 23. And that's the offensive lineman, the offensive tackle out of Alabama, Caden Proctor. Now, obviously, the Alabama connection.
Yes.
Eagles live and die by it.
Yep.
Caden Proctor, 6'7", 352. A junior out of Des Moines, Iowa. Played left tackle though, but that's his sub position. But he's an offensive tackle. Ran 5.21 at the combine. 5.21 is not bad. Solid height, great weight. 32.5 inch vertical, which is not really important, but the broad jump is 109. So that kick out, that's that ability to cover space is there.
He's an athlete, man.
And pass blocking rating a 90%, run blocking grade 87%. Was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, according to ESPN, 24/7 Sports, and Rivals.com.
That's useless information.
Yeah, it's just information, right?
Yeah, that's useless. Don't tell me he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. That makes no difference in the world.
Right. So it says here, Proctor's combination of size and movement is uncommon. A 352-pound tackle who posts a 32.5-inch vertical and runs in the low 5.2s is not someone you find in every class. The combine confirmed what the film suggested at his best. He can move people in the run game and has the range to handle NFL speed when his technique is right. His best fit is a gap or power scheme where he can fire off the ball and create movement. He has the feet for zone concepts, but he is most effective attacking defenders rather than mirroring them laterally. So here's where it gets interesting. It says the tape tells a more complicated story, though. He gets beaten inside more than you want to see from a 3-year SEC starter, and the arm length from the combine helps explain why. For his size, the arms are shorter than expected, which shrinks his margin for error on hand placement and makes his technique and consistencies more costly. Footwork and pad level flash at times, but rarely come together for a full game outside of that Georgia performance. The weight questions are fair, too. His pass protection tracked directly with when he got below 360. And teams will want to know the 352-pound version reports if they want to know if the 352-pound version reports to camp. So here's the thing, right? This is a guy who, at a glance, looks the part. But I'll be honest with you, I don't like my offensive tackles having short arms.
Where is he ranked?
For his position or overall?
For his position.
They have him as the 3rd-ranked offensive lineman.
So he's okay. What about overall?
Overall, give me 1 second here. Right now, Caden Proctor is he's the 14th overall prospect according to NFLDraftBuzz.com. 14th overall prospect.
So here's the problem with everything you just read to me. So you either are or you are not.
Isn't it funny how they do that though?
Is he in the top 20 overall picks in the draft? If you rank 14 and you consider to be the number 3 ranked offensive lineman in the whole NFL draft, you're going in the first 32 picks.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to hear about his arms being too short.
Mm.
Because if his arms was too short, he wouldn't be ranked number 3. Because I guarantee you, it's somebody that's probably ranked 4, 5, 6, all the way down to 60 that got longer arms than him, but they ain't ranked number 3. So all of that nonsense is nonsense. That's how they switch the narrative up. He either is or he isn't. When I look at the tape, what am I going to see? Am I going to be worried that his arms are short? Or am I going to look at him knocking a defensive tackle on his ass? Can he keep the guy off of the quarterback? Can he do that? That's the only thing I'm worried about. If they're going to tell me in the scouting report that his arms are too short, then he shouldn't be damn number 3.
I mean, it's a good point.
So that's one of them things where I got to watch his tape. I got to do homework because that's confusing to me. You showing all of his faults. So with all of them faults, he's ranked number 3. He's 14th overall in the whole draft. And you got a problem with it? Figure out what you want to do. You got paralysis by analysis. So that's too much information. It's like, okay, I take that part out. If he ranked number 3, that's the type of stuff, in my opinion, that's where Howie is better than everybody else. Because he can sift through the bullshit. That's the stuff
I like that perspective. I like that perspective because
you either are or you aren't.
Yeah, it's like it's one thing. Like we're not talking about like a guy. See, here's the thing. The deeper you get into the draft, that's where the traits start elevating in importance. But when you're in that top echelon of the first round, early second, it's like, okay, guys aren't in that position by accident.
Correct.
And also, what somebody here, who is it? I just saw here. Vincent James may have an angle here that I like. I like what he's saying. He says a lot of teams think he's probably better suited at guard. And here's the thing. I'm not even mad at the logic because 6'7", 352 at guard, that kind of reminds me of something. And
reminds you of Mekhi Becton.
Right. And based off of, like I said, the mock drafts, they have the Eagles like Daniel Jeremiah, right? And I like Daniel Jeremiah personally. He says when it comes to addressing needs, Howie Roseman tends to be a year early instead of a year late.
Correct.
Right tackle Lane Johnson is under contract through 2027, but the Eagles get some insurance for the 13-year-old veteran now. Caden Proctor could also slide inside to guard if needed. So Caden Proctor, if anything, he gives you position versatility, and you can't lose. You put him at tackle, all right. You put him at guard, all right. I like Tyler Steen, but Tyler Steen, in my humble opinion, his spot isn't guaranteed, and it shouldn't be guaranteed.
No.
So
you are correct.
Let's say, hypothetically speaking, you draft Proctor at 23. Lane Johnson is still there. You kick Proctor in at right guard. Landon Dickerson is healthier. Cam Jurgens is healthier. You got Jordan Millard on the outside. Now we cooking with fish grease. Caden Proctor on the inside next to Lane Johnson, learning next to one of the best. He got a 2-time Pro Bowler to his left. He got a multi-time first-team All-Pro and 2-time Super Bowl champion to his right. What better farm system for Caden Proctor to learn in?
Right. I agree 100%.
So that is so that's the thing, right? And I'm probably more optimistic on this new O-line coach than other people are.
I agree.
And I think we've been married to Jeff Stoutland so long, it's hard to think there's anybody else that could be as good,
yes,
or even good enough.
Yes,
right.
He set the bar so high.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna reach that.
But the reality is, there's offensive line coaches that are great out there.
Exactly.
That are fantastic. It's just that it's in Stoutland we trust. We've seen what Stoutland has done.
And here's the other part. And this is the thing that we never thought we would have to think about. His bar is low right now because the run game was so trash last year. So all he has to do is get our offensive line to just block okay. They ain't got to be great. They ain't got to be world beaters. If they just block okay in the run game, they'll be better than last year.
I also think pride and ego comes into effect.
Absolutely.
You have guys coming off one of their worst years protecting the quarterback and in the run game specifically, coming off one of their worst years, if not their worst year in run blocking. You think Mailata, Juergens, Landon Dickerson, Lane Johnson, even Tyler Steen, want to throw him in there. You think they're not coming in here like, yo, we dropped the ball, and that's ain't gonna happen again.
Nah, all of them gonna have a chip on their shoulder, and not for nothing. If something's a little bit off, who you think they calling? If Lane Johnson is still the leader of that offensive line, if he don't like what he's seeing, who you think he calling? He calling Jeff like, yo, Stout. Can we remember Lane was the one that said he'll probably be involved in some way, shape, or form. If they struggling with something, it ain't even got to come out in the news. That's a private phone call. Hey, let me get Leonard Dickerson and Juergens on three-way. Let's have a group call real quick. Tell me what you seeing, coach. That is not out of the realm of possibility, and we would never know. But again, the new dude coming in, it ain't like he's garbage. I am sure he's good at what he does. He just hasn't been around as long as Jeff Stoutland. And let's be honest, if Jeff Stoutland was in any other city, he would probably be just as good as he is now. He just wouldn't have the cachet behind his name because he's in Philly.
Yeah, there's sometimes the odds are in your favor. And what I mean by that is a coach is only as good as the talent he has. And the talent can only be as good as the coach they have. So there was this perfect synergy that was occurring. And it got to a point where we saw Jeff Stoutland being able to turn a lot of guys into all pros and Pro Bowlers. And look, everybody can't go. Everybody can't make it, right?
Yeah,
you can't
turn everybody. Can't do that.
You can't turn everybody into starters and Pro Bowlers, and you give guys a shot, right? Right now, we didn't really see too much growth out of Miles Hinton and Cameron Williams, but it's hard to say that when they're better in depth. I mean, you got guys like Mailata and Lane in front of you, you're not gonna really see it, right? But the reality is Chris Cooper comes into a good situation where he has legit talent all across that room. Guys who've been there, done it, who know what to do, know what not to do. He doesn't have to spend too much time helping guys develop good habits. And I think that's half the battle as well as a coach. When you got a young offensive line, a young group that doesn't know how to win, that's never been good, you're coming in fixing a lot. He's kind of coming into a situation with guys who know how to do their jobs. I think that's the mistake that people are making. And I'm thinking that they're making that because they stealing their feelings for Jeff Stoutland. I'm stealing my feelings for Jeff Stoutland. Well, what do you mean?
It's not difficult. It's not a difficult problem to fix because the offensive line, they understand very clearly what they did and did not do.
Yeah.
It is not a big puzzle what was going on. My only question is what was going on? What we didn't know? That's the question. What didn't we know? What was going on with Cam Juergens that you got to go across the sea and get stem cells and all? It must have been something serious. That's my biggest, I guess, gripe or question mark with Jeff Stoutland. If all of this shit was going on during the season, how come you didn't pull his card and say, "Yeah, we got to replace you till you get your stuff together"? That's my biggest indictment of Stout.
Mismanagement of the personnel.
You saw what was going on. You watched more tape than we do. You had to see when Cam Juergens had two weeks in a row where he had an Olay block. He didn't block a soul.
and you put Bertolf in there for one game, and you saw the drastic difference in the position,
and never went back to him? Why? Because you are considered an expert in your field. So when you make a mistake, people have a right to question you. The truth is always going to be the truth. We ain't gotta like it, but if
is
it's
it as
the truth,
easy
it's the
though?
truth.
Is it as easy as a decision as we're making it?
Yes. I don't think, because again, look at the situation. So let's go down the list. Jordan Mailata, Leonard Dickerson, Juergens in the middle, Steen's a right guard, Lane Johnson's back at right tackle. Right? The person in that group that probably started the least amount of games is Tyler Steen. But he started enough to know what is expected of him.
High value snaps too.
Correct. Nobody on that current starting line you should have question marks about. Nobody. They all know what's expected. They all know what they didn't do last year. They all know what's on tape from last year. And they know what they don't want to see that again. So they understand. Now, you might have different schemes and different techniques if we're going to do a lot of this wide zone running and all of this stuff that Sean Mannion is supposed to want to do. It's going to take a little bit of, you got to get some new steps in the repertoire. You got a new system, you got a new scheme, you got a new coach. The verbiage is different, the voice is different. So yes, you do to a certain point, you are learning again. But everybody on that offensive line has been a professional long enough to know how the sausage is made. This is part of the business. Your job is to figure out the best way that you can get up to speed in the quickest amount of time. And I believe they can do that. That's why I'm saying their job is not difficult. Cooper's job is, only thing you got to do is tell them where to go. They've been blocking long enough to know they got to wheel their hips around and this, that. They got to.
And that's my point.
Offense.
And that's my point, right? My point is he's not inheriting an offensive line that lacks fundamentals.
Correct.
He's not having to build this line from the ground up. You get what I'm saying? There's sometimes where you look at the offensive line, they're like, they are hopeless.
Bruh.
You gotta retool this whole thing.
He has a Jeff Stoutland coached offensive line.
Yes.
That's where you can take last year out and just we can say that's an anomaly. That's fair.
I think that's more than fair. That's exactly what that was.
When you look at the body of work, you're bound to have a bad year in there somewhere. And this
listen, to take it a step further, every stock has a dip.
Yeah.
Every business has a down year.
So again, I'm saying with the new offensive line coach, is he the run game coordinator? I don't know how that's working. Have they made a decision on that? But
that's a good question. As of right now, the run game coordinator is also tight end coach Ryan Mahaffey.
Okay. So
right now, Chris
so that's
Cooper
less than he got to worry about.
Yeah. Jamal Singleton is back.
In my opinion, they all run game coordinators because they all go to the same meetings. And they all have to be in sync. He's not the run game coordinator in title, but he's going to be doing the same thing because the run game coordinator is going to say, hey, this is what we need from our guys, and you got to teach them how to do it. That's what it comes down to. So it's going to be a synchronistic, that's what coaches do, especially the offensive coaches and the offensive line coaches. Everybody got to be on the same page. So the run game coordinator is still just the title. The offensive line coach still is responsible for the guys getting to their right man for the blocks.
Yeah.
And if the man, let me say it like this. If the Philadelphia Eagles hired him, I am going to assume he is proficient at his job. Now, I have to assume that because I thought the same thing about Kevin Patullo, and it just didn't pan out that way. I thought the same thing about Keely Ringo, but it just didn't pan out that way. So we still got to give him a little bit of time to say, okay, let's prove to me you know what you're talking about.
Agreed. Also, I think it's worth noting that when it comes to the Eagles offensive line coaches, right? The head guy is Chris Cooper, of course. Their assistant offensive line coach is Greg Austin. He's a former player, played guard at Nebraska.
Mhm.
So he's a guy that didn't play on the next level, but that playing experience, right? And both of them were interior guys, Chris Cooper and Greg Austin. Interesting enough, but I think it's something to think about, right? And typically that offensive line room, or typically offensive line coaches, for the most part, I feel like out of all coaching positions, they're usually players. It feels like former players, but Greg Austin, Chris Cooper at the offensive line room. Greg Austin is a brother, so I'm definitely rooting for him. Again, this is a situation where you don't got to clean up but so much.
Right.
They can look at that tape once. They can watch one game and figure out all their problems. And I think, regardless, they got to go offensive line early in this draft.
I think that's exactly what Howie's going to do.
Yeah, it's going to be offensive line. If not that, it's going to be in the trenches. I don't see them.
Something happens, somebody makes a trade, they disrupt the apple cart,
Yeah.
everything shifts down. That can happen too, and maybe it'll be another situation where somebody falls to us that we didn't think was going to be there, so they go in a different direction. That possibility is always there as well.
Yeah, ahead of the Eagles in the first few picks. Eagles are at 23, Chargers at 22, Pittsburgh at 21, Cowboys at 20, Panthers at 19, Minnesota at 18, Detroit at 17. And that's kind of that area where you would see the Eagles making a move.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't see the Eagles trading up from 23 to 12 or 13. That's just too far. I don't think they would. It's a lot. It was a lot they would have to give up to get up that high. Like if you're moving up that high, there's a specific guy you're trying to get.
Yeah. Agreed.
But realistically, if the Eagles do make a trade, I could see them moving up no more than 4 picks, no more than that. And I think that's being generous a little bit.
Yeah, you can't look at it in the vacuum though, because it all depends on what everybody else does in the first 22 picks. So unless everything goes according to plan, and rarely does it do that in the draft, I can see how he's either going to sit tight or he's going to make a deal and move back and end up with 2 picks in the second round or something goofy like that. That's what Howie's known to do.
Oof. Moving back from 23, it'd be jarring.
I mean, it could be, but who are they looking for?
So, okay, that's a good question. That takes us to, we can finish here, all the free agent additions. They brought in
not even the free agents though. I'm look at it from the draft perspective. Who are you looking for? Howie's got a list, and he's got 10 names on the list. These are the guys that we will go hell and high water. We are trying to get these guys, and they got a number 1 on that list. If anything happens and this guy's available, we are getting that guy.
Ooh, that's good. So who would that guy be? I
don't know yet. But my
what
point
position
is,
would it be?
Yes. Now, what happens if whoever that guy is, let's say this mystical team pops a trade at number 6, and everything shifts because they traded, and then they traded up, got a guy. Now he's not available for the number 17, so they got to go to plan B, and everybody falls. So now the guy they had at number 1 probably won't get drafted until the middle of the second round. That's how we make the trade. That's where the things that's where that type of stuff happens. And it's usually dependent upon what somebody else does. But it goes back to who's on that list. And Howie Roseman's phone, who are the top 10 guys that they're looking for on the draft board. That's the most important thing for us, because that determines everything. Didn't the last 3 drafts, right?
I even see people. Here's the thing, right? Offensive line is obviously a position that we know they need. If a guy like Omar Cooper Jr. falls to you, wide receiver out of Indiana.
Yeah, they've been talking about him a lot.
if they pick him, you know exactly what's happening next.
Correct.
But the question is, what happens first? Obviously, we know the post June 1st move from AJ is a way easier cap hit to manage.
Right.
So that's why it makes it hard to believe that they trade him prior to that date.
So, okay.
So therefore, if they do draft wide receiver in the first round, they're telegraphing their move.
Maybe. Because we know Howie Roseman, what if he puts that information out there that they are looking at this kid Cooper from Indiana?
Yeah, and I don't think they will, by the way.
I don't think they will either. But
I don't think they will at all.
We are a month away from the draft. Subterfuge is going to be at an all-time high.
Yes.
Everybody's throwing curveballs. Everybody's doing misdirection. Howie Roseman is going to talk up this wide receiver, thinking that we're going to get a wide receiver and then let A.J. Brown go. But what if he doesn't? What if he gets that offensive lineman? Nolan Smith, Carter, Nakobe Dean. All three of those guys fell. Cooper DeJean, didn't he fall as well?
Yeah, he did. He did.
You never know what. And now we looking at it's a bunch of teams that could have had them, and they chose to let them go. Zach Bond sitting. How many times have we talked about Zach Bond in the Saints? What is it that gives these teams that blindness? How come they can't see the forest for the trees? What is it with that everything is right in front of your face and you miss it? And it happens in the draft. Again, I'm trying to think. Yeah, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith dropped, Nakobe Dean dropped. Hell, who was the last starter that didn't drop to us? That we got him when we were supposed to get him?
Good question.
Smitty?
Did you say Jahad Campbell?
Jahad Campbell didn't drop though.
He did. He dropped because of that shoulder surgery he got post combine.
Right.
He was supposed to go. Jahad Campbell was looked at as a top 20, top 15 talent.
Yep.
He got the shoulder surgery post combine, and people backed off of him.
Yep. And when I say drop, let me clarify this because I see some people in the chat. Big Dog, if they still win in the first round, you might have dropped a couple places, but you still first round. But I understand what you're saying. But and
then Cooper DeJean, yeah, good point, Big Dog 5. Cooper DeJean, remember he broke his fibula, I think. Senior year.
Yeah.
Was it his tibia or his fibula? I can't remember. Yep. He broke his leg.
He couldn't play. He couldn't play like the first couple weeks, right?
He didn't play he played in the last Eagles preseason game against the Vikings. The last one.
He sat out 3 weeks. Yep, that's right.
Yeah, he was on ice all offseason.
Bro. I brought all this up to say,
and then he didn't play the first year. Right, he didn't play until after Tampa.
Dude, it could be a big ass curveball with Howie Roseman. What happens if this kid Cooper, the kid from Indiana, what happens if we bring him in on like 3 visits? You know what that's gonna do. The noise for this kid is gonna be through the roof, and Howie's gonna keep his cards close to the chest, and that's gonna cause some people probably to do some things that they wouldn't normally do. And now, to your point, if we're looking at this kid Cooper, well, you know what that means for A.J. Brown. Really? What does it mean? We ain't made a draft pick yet.
Yeah, and also to that end, yeah, they did go get Hollywood Brown. They did sign Elijah Moore. Guess what? So
they not A.J. Brown.
Not just that, 1-year deals, expendable contracts. Elijah Moore or Hollywood Brown could very well not make this roster. It's entirely possible. So, at a glance, the Elijah Moore signing and the Hollywood Brown signing looks, oh man, are the Eagles telling you something? Maybe, but maybe not. The reality is they lost Jahan Dotson in free agency. They got an unproven guy at the number 3 spot in Darius Cooper. They got to bring some competition in.
That's exactly how I look at it. That is because that's the first thing I heard was, oh, that looks like they moving on from AJ Brown. No, it don't.
Oh, that move, yeah,
That was the Jahan Dotson move.
That move doesn't even equate to that.
No,
from a production standpoint, from a player profile standpoint, just from a style, a personnel stylistic standpoint, it just doesn't even compute.
Everybody on the outside looking in, swearing up and down that was an AJ Brown move. They trying to figure out a way. But if you don't pay attention, you don't know that. You just going off of what everybody else is saying.
All you know is AJ Brown's in trade rumors. Eagles signed 2 wide receivers. That's all you. Exactly. That's all you see.
As far as they go.
You don't. That's as far as they go. They don't go into the weeds and say, okay, the Eagles had a wide receiver last year in Johnny Wilson who had a season-ending injury, and they don't know where he's going to be when he comes back. So they need more depth there. They don't see the fact that they got this young they got this young kid there in Darius Cooper, who moves up to the number 3 spot because they lost Jahan Dotson. There's some uncertainty there. They don't look at it like that.
Link. I didn't hear about it, but send the link, bro.
They don't look at it like that. The reality is the Eagles, as much as I like Darius Cooper, the number 3 wide receiver spot is uncertain. And some people retort to that maybe, or the Eagles don't throw to their number 3 anyway. And right. you know what my retort to that would be? New OC, new philosophy.
Right. So nobody knows. Everybody's guessing.
Exactly. Ultimately, we don't know.
Nope.
And their retort to that may be, well, Kellen Moore came in and we didn't see production increase from the number 3 spot then. And my retort to that would be, well, of course, Saquon Barkley was having a career year. You think I'm giving it to my number 3 receiver? Or Saquon Barkley doing that? Yep. So we can always go tit for tat for this thing. But the reality is you got a new OC and the player profile that we're seeing them target in this wide receiver room in terms of free agency is very different than what they've had the past handful of seasons. They haven't had this level of explosion or twitchiness at that number 3 spot since when? I can't remember.
Who was the last? I mean, if you got somebody like that at the slot,
Quez Watkins wasn't twitchy. He was just straight line fast.
No, and he couldn't catch the ball when we needed him to catch the ball.
Jalen Reagor couldn't catch.
He was fast as shit, but
twitchy, but can't catch.
Can't catch.
And can't separate. Couldn't run routes. You know what I'm saying? Who else? Just figure Whiteside, obviously. Not even
stop it.
Right. So when you really get into the weeds, it's like they really haven't had a Hollywood Brown or Elijah Moore level twitchiness at that number 3 spot. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out nonetheless.
I think Howie Roseman is just stockpiling players right now. Yeah, I think he's just stockpiling players.
Yeah. Yeah, giving yourself enough bullets in the gun, giving yourself options, giving yourself some freedom. Because what happens is a lot of these pre-draft signings that you see when it comes to Howie Roseman, he uses them as a way to supplement his draft class.
Correct.
They're not just sign a player there. Oh, he's available, sign him, sign him. These moves are shifting the solstice of his of the direction he takes his draft. They're not fixing an issue. They're just traffic cones, kind of helping him get to where he wants to get to.
Right.
So, we'll see.
He's going to be, I think, let's keep it simple. I think you were correct in saying that he's going to go offensive lineman. If he does anything different, it'll be a total shock. It'll be a total surprise. Mm-hmm. I saw some people mention Sadiq. That's great. I would love to have Sadiq, but I don't think Sadiq's going to be available when we make that pick.
No, I don't think so either.
And even if he was, he's not going to draft at number 23 at tight end.
Nope,
I don't see that happen.
they've never done it.
No,
They've never done
So-
it. You brought back Dallas Goedert, so you don't got to do something like that.
correct.
Right. We can criticize the tight end room as much as we want, and trust me, I want to do it, and I do want a tight end on day 2. I do.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
But Howie Roseman brought back Dallas Goedert. Like I said, a lot of these signings that he made are used to prevent him from making an uncivilized decision on draft day.
Yeah.
Sometimes
he set up the pieces on the board.
you got to pay
That's all he
attention to the moves on the margins. It's easy to pay attention to the big money. Easy to do that. But these little moves that Howie Roseman is making, 1 year deal there, 1 year deal there, 1 year deal over here, 1 year deal over here. When you have a body and you have a body that has talent, because I think Hollywood Brown has talent you can use. I think Elijah Moore has talent you can use.
Absolutely.
I believe that, especially playing next to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley in the backfield. Dallas Goedert right there. I think you have talent there. But when you bring back Dallas Goedert on the 1 year deal, right? You bring in Elijah Moore, you bring in Hollywood Brown, you bring back Fred Johnson on a 1 year deal. That's another move that we forgot to mention today, you guys. The Eagles re-signed Fred Johnson on a 1 year deal. You bring him back, so now you have your tackle depth on the right side behind Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
These moves prevent you from reaching. So I love where the Eagles are right now. I don't think we need to be in a position where we're overreacting or judging or unfairly judging this team. When you look at the Eagles from top to bottom, there's still a force to be fucked with.
Yeah, and I think it's not going to matter whoever we draft. It's not going to amount to a hill of beans until we see Sean Mannion work.
Yeah. I agree with that wholeheartedly. They brought back 2 safeties in free agency. They signed Marcus Epps, brought him back on a 1 year deal, and they signed former Pro Bowler and former first team All Pro JT Gray.
You know what that tells me? That tells me, Makuba, get ready. You got experience behind you. You got somebody you can talk to that's somebody, a good vet that can pour into you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Makuba, you better get your stuff together, bro.
And JT Gray, he just turned 30.
Yep.
So, again, former Pro Bowler, former first and second team All Pro. He spent the bulk of his career in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Then he spent the 2025 season in Denver. Then he transitioned to Tampa. Only played in 5 games last year. I'm not exactly sure what that was about. I have to find out whether or not it was because of injury or not. But regardless, though, you got a vet back there that knows what he's doing.
Yep. That's the most important thing.
And you bring back Marcus Epps, another veteran that knows what he's doing. And I didn't think Marcus Epps played bad.
I don't think he did either. I think he's gotten better as he's not as reckless as he used to be.
I think he's gotten more savvy. He has.
Isn't it funny? Sidney Brown got cut because he plays like Marcus Epps did when Marcus Epps was here the first time.
And you almost won a Super Bowl with Marcus Epps.
Yep. Wild, physical, uncontrolled, and sometimes off target.
Right. So,
I'll never forget that game when we played in San Francisco and he came up and tried to let the big hit on CMC and ducked his helmet, and CMC bounced right off that shit and trotted right in the end zone.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, that was in Philly. We haven't played in San Fran in quite some time.
Nah, this was in San Francisco. It must have been a 22 year.
22, we played them in Philly.
This was in San Francisco because Christian McCaffrey scored a touchdown on the play.
A running play to the right.
He literally bounced off the tackle and scored.
That was the NFC Championship game, 2022, 2023.
That was in Philly?
Mm-hmm. I remember that play.
I don't know why I thought that was in LA. But in any case. You know,
Yeah.
that's why Sidney Brown got cut.
Yeah, and you bring in a guy like JT Gray. This funny. The moves tell you a lot. You traded Sidney Brown for draft picks, and you brought in 2 veterans at the safety position, and you still got Andrew Makuba on ice. So when you think about it, it's like and I don't think Makuba was reckless last year. I thought Makuba lacked experience.
Right.
Whereas though Sidney Brown, there was a lot of recklessness in his play, and I like Sidney Brown personally. I like
Yes.
him. But nonetheless,
Too fast.
yeah. So this is interesting. Like I said to you before, and we can close it here. All these signings the Eagles have made, these moves prevent you from being overzealous in the draft. You sign 2 safeties, JT Gray and Marcus Epps to 1-year deals. You sign, you bring 4 tight ends in. Dallas Goedert, who was here already, Grant Cacatero, who was here already. You bring in Johnny Munt, a blocking tight end, and you bring in this other tight end named Stone Smart, right? To a 1-year deal. You bring in running back Damian Pierce.
Yes, I like Damian Pierce.
He hasn't really been the same guy since that rookie year breakout, but it's interesting nonetheless. I still like our Saquon Tank combo with the Will Shipley.
I agree 100%, but ain't nothing wrong with Pierce, a young fella.
Yeah, nothing at all. Nothing wrong with it at all. And then you add to the cornerback room Tyreek Woolen, and Jonathan Jones, experience. There's a lot of experience in that defense that they brought in. They swapped out some youth and brought in more experience at safety. And they got younger and more talented at corner. I think there's no way Reek Woolen can be as bad as Adoree Jackson. And I think Adoree Jackson balanced out on the back end. But he still wasn't. I still think Reek Woolen, whatever he gives you, is going to be better than whatever Adoree Jackson could have gave you on his best day.
Agreed. Agreed 100%.
The youth, the health on side, the length, the range, the mentality, right?
As long as they don't give stupid penalties, we good.
Right. And then you bring in wide receivers Marquise Brown and Elijah Moore. So, and you restructured Michael Carter II's contract, and you still have him at nickel. So as of right now, when you look at the Eagles defense, your starters are Quinyon Mitchell, Reek Woolen, Cooper DeJean. You got Andrew Makuba and Marcus Epps at safety. You brought in JT Gray, but right now on this depth chart, they have Michael Carter II listed as a backup strong safety, and they got Jonathan Jones listed as a backup nickel.
Yeah, but all of that's gonna change.
Of course it will. But I'm looking at this defense right now. This is a more talented defense still than most teams.
Agreed.
Still.
Agreed. Big time.
So that's a good place to be. And then on offense, obviously, the offensive line is what it is. The talent is all over the place. This Philadelphia Eagles team should still be a team that's looked at as you don't want to play with your food with Philadelphia. You don't think that because they had the year they had last year, things were a little wonky. They're a team that doesn't demand respect. Come correct. All right. Any final thoughts, my man?
Nah, man, we getting close. We a month out. And it's only going to ramp up from here because we got another week and a half of March Madness, and then that'll be the lull. So it should give us 2 weeks? 2 weeks before the draft. So it's about to get crazy. This is the calm before the storm. Then we're gonna have. Isn't it funny? I said this before. Watch all the channels: ESPN, Fox, NFL Network. Watch all of them. Now the trend is that these reporters that be breaking news, every one of them now has this thing where they answering the phone on camera. They giving an interview. They in the studio. Then their phone rings and they look.
They got the text.
I'm like, I see what they doing. So now credit Shefty was the one that started this.
Mm-hmm.
And now
and then Stephen A picked up on it saying, "Listen, I'm getting texts right now live."
I think it's all staged. I don't think it's natural. I think all of that is staged. And I'm like, any other time, I don't know how many years before this, you made sure to turn your phone off, leave it off camera, all of that type of stuff. Now they got it. And everybody's copying that. And I don't know if you've been paying attention to the NCAA tournament. There was a whole interaction between the player and the coach.
I love that, by the way.
Coach,
I love every minute of that, every second
right.
of it. I love that because I know what she said to her. I know what she said to her.
I done seen about 5 or 6 videos where they reading lips. So I'm like, everybody wasn't reading lips before this. You saw one video and everybody's copying off that first video because now they reading off in slow motion. You can tell it's an AI voice. Now they had the because you can do this in AI. You can record something and you can say, hey, sync it to this video. Y'all ain't slick. Come up with your own stuff. Be original. We are not AI here on the Bald Eagles podcast, man. We for real. We bleed for real.
Big facts, man. On that note, y'all know the vibes. Y'all
Small
know the
rant,
energy, man. We really do appreciate y'all for locking in for as long as you guys have. Means a lot to us, goes a long way. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Pro Fan Talk. Subscribe to Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge to the game. He's Marcus Thomas. I'm your guy, Tone DeShields II. You guys have been locked in on the Bald Eagles podcast. And it's straight like that. We out of here, y'all.
Yes, sir. And as usual, go Birds. Uh-oh.
In the city of Philly, where the birds take flight, Eagle swag on the rise each and every night. Tone and Marcus got the scoop ready to ignite. From the lanes of South Street to the Moore Street lights, dashing like a running back, hitting every play. Fly guys in the zone, never led astray. Talking touchdowns, talking game day. Huddle around the mic, hear what they gotta say. I like an eagle soaring in the sky. Tone and Marcus always standing by, bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry. Fly like an eagle soars in the sky. Tone and Marcus always standing by, bringing their heat, call it do or die. Philly squad, hear the battle cry.